If you pick Thursday, Friday, and Saturday to shop Gimbel's Lilac Sale, they're bonus days, so you'll get extra savings. Save 33% on selected Mrs. Coordinates and Separates from Clubhouse. Save 25% on our entire stock of Aero and Van Heusen short-sleeved shirts. And buy 2 decorator lamps for just $88. Gimbel's Lilac Sale, going on now. If you pick Thursday, Friday, and Saturday to shop, they're bonus days with extra savings. Gimbel's Lilac Sale.
Protecting the President, Thursday on Evening Magazine.
Just can't believe it's happened. And that we really loved him and we're going to miss him so much. And just to see lives, innocent people who wouldn't hurt anybody, just snuffed out. For what?
Italian police now think they know who planted the bomb aboard TWA Flight 840. An apparent act of revenge against the United States and her people. An act of revenge that took 4 innocent lives. We have full details on the attack, the investigation, and the United States response ahead on the CBS Morning News. Good morning, I'm Forrest Sawyer. And good morning again. I'm Forrest Sawyer.
And I'm Maria Shriver. Today is Thursday, April 3rd.
And while you have been sleeping, these are the developments in the bombing of TWA Flight 840. Italian police, as I told you, now believe that an Arab terrorist who flew on the jet earlier in the day planted that bomb under a seat. Now, earlier, Palestinian sources blamed the attack on a group called the Arab Revolutionary Cells. That's a group that has been tied to the radical Abu Nidal terrorists, about whom we have heard so much. But there is nothing right now that ties the man on the plane to either organization. Abu Nidal, you recall, was blamed for deadly airport attacks in Rome and Vienna last December. Now, this morning, Athens airport officials are sending the plane's black box flight recorder to the United States. There will be detailed analysis here. In their turn, FBI agents are heading to Athens to aid in the ongoing investigation.
Forrest, the pilot of Flight 840, is talking to reporters in Athens this morning, and we'll be hearing from him a little bit later on in this broadcast as we're covering the impact of the story throughout the morning. And in just a few minutes, we'll be talking with one of the passengers who was on board when the bomb went off. We'll be talking about safety concerns with experts on airport security, and we'll tell you how to cut down on the risks involved in traveling abroad. We'll examine the growing threat of terrorism around the world, and we'll look at the history of recent terrorist attacks. But before we get to any of that, we want to bring you the latest news. Faith Daniels is at the news desk. Faith?
Maria, Italian investigators are saying this morning they are sure that a known Arab terrorist, codenamed Mansour, boarded the TWA jet in Cairo. The man left the plane in Athens and left behind his hand luggage. He was seated in the same area where the bomb later blew up. As the investigation continues this morning, FBI agents are due to arrive in Athens to help at the request of President Reagan. More on the developments in Athens from Mark Phillips.
The unloading of the TWA 727 airliner began at Athens Airport this morning as the investigation continued into how the bomb had been placed on board. According to U.S. sources here, all 4 victims of yesterday's blast were Americans. 3 of them Greek Americans, and 1 man born in Colombia. American investigators from the FAA, the CIA, and the FBI began the inquiry into the bombing this morning. The plane's black box is due to be shipped to the United States today for further examination. The investigation will center not only on just what happened aboard TWA 840 yesterday, but on how an explosive device was smuggled aboard the aircraft, apparently in hand luggage that passed through either X-ray machines or metal detectors. And today, after a night to think about it, some of the passengers were wondering whether security was tight enough.
We didn't have an X-ray check again in Rome. We were in transit, coming from New York to Rome. We had been checked. We went through transit to this new airplane, but no X-ray.
Security was tighter today, though, at Athens Airport and at the American Air Base here. The Arab Revolutionary Cells, the breakaway PLO group which has claimed responsibility for the bombing, may not have been acting on direct orders from Libya, but they appear to have heeded the general call for attacks on vulnerable American targets. And And the theorizing here, Faith, still is that the explosive, it's thought perhaps a plastic explosive, was brought onto the plane in Cairo. The plane then traveled to Athens and continued on to Rome, but the passenger, the codename Mansour passenger, got off the plane in Athens. On the return flight from Rome to Athens, the bomb went off.
All right, thank you very much, Mark Phillips, reporting from Athens. As we've been telling you, police in Rome think they know how the bomb got on the plane. They believe it was carried by the same man who is suspected of planting a bomb on an Italian jet 3 years ago. That bomb was found and defused. As Bert Quint reports, this time, police weren't so lucky.
Italian investigators say the bomb may have been on the plane before it came to Rome Airport and stayed on undetected despite security checks here. The scenario, as outlined by Italy's chief anti-terrorist investigator, Domenico Sica, is that a man called Mansour boarded the 727 in Cairo and sat in the row where the bomb later went off. He left the plane in Athens. The aircraft then continued to Rome, was cleaned and supposedly searched, and then turned around and headed back to Athens. Under the seat, the Italians believe, was a piece of hand luggage left by this Mansour, and in the luggage, the bomb. Mansour, it is thought, is a code name for a veteran Arab terrorist and bomb expert. Italian authorities increased security here after the attacks on the Rome and Vienna airports last December. They say only 10 or 11 persons boarded the flight in Rome. The others had come from New York on another TWA plane. Those who boarded here, they insist, all went through metal detectors. The Italians think this may not have been retaliation for the recent American action off the Libyan coast. They say they had been hearing since January that an attempt was being prepared against an American or some other flight bound for Athens. And the defense minister said he hopes the United States will not strike back by military action, but instead will work politically against terrorism along with Italy and its other allies. Bert Quint, CBS News, Rome.
The person who put the bomb aboard Flight 840 found a hole in the security net designed to prevent such incidents. How much more can be done to protect air travelers? Ike Pappas looks for some answers.
Threatening to kill the passengers.
Despite stepped-up precautions following the TWA hijacking last June and other terrorist incidents at airports worldwide, experts say no foolproof way has yet been developed to keep the traveling public immune from acts of terrorism. Some are blaming indifference on the part of security officials.
And the sooner airport authorities and controllers worldwide understand that we are at war, then the better it will be for everybody.
Physical searches of hundreds of bags at busy airports would be impractical because they could bring air travel to a halt. In addition, X-ray operators often don't know what to look for or are careless in their looking.
If there's a fault and the operator is turning around talking to his colleague or watching the hostess walk down the terminal, then it's not going to do the security job for him.
The FAA will spend nearly $12 million this year to develop new ways to detect explosives in bags. One method being examined would use low-power radiation beams to detect vapors from explosives, eliminating the need for dynamite-sniffing dogs. Congress intends to make the TWA bombing a test case for anti-terrorist legislation passed last year. Hearings will be held later this month to determine which airports worldwide do not meet minimum safety standards, and travelers will be warned to stay away from them. Ike Pappas, CBS News, Washington.
The safety of the Space Shuttle is the topic of a hearing in Washington today. The Presidential Commission looking into the Challenger disaster will hear the concerns of 4 veteran astronauts, including Chief Astronaut John Young. Young has accused NASA of putting the shuttle launch schedule ahead of safety. That's the latest from the news desk, and now back to Maria.
Thank you very much, Faith, and I'm joined here by Kevin O'Connell, who has been kind enough to come from KCBS in Los Angeles to fill in for the vacationing Steve Baskerville.
I thought I'd beat the crowd because, you know, on the 4th of July, they're going to have the big, you know, ceremony out there.
A couple months early, huh?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, it's nice. Take the Staten Island Ferry. You can beat the crowds. The statue looks better than ever.
And the weather here has been beautiful, but you were telling me earlier that there is storms. There are storms out in the west.
Boy, I'll tell you, Maria, this morning, especially in Denver, where they had 3 inches of snow for breakfast, they had about 13 inches in parts of Utah. Let's go region by region around the country. country. We'll start here in the east and we'll work our way to the west, as on this Thursday it is going to be a real stormy day. Lots of sunshine here in the east, obviously the place to be, even though the temperatures slowly will start to relax over the next couple of days. It's been an absolutely lovely week here so far. In the Midwest, this is where slowly some of the action you're going to start to see. Rain in the form of showers, precipitation in the form of snow. Once you get out to the Dakotas, you can see the differential between, let's say, the 38, and look at this, we're talking 66, so a 30-degree spread, all part of this storm system, which is going to be bringing thunderstorms as we move down into the south, and maybe even some tornado activity in the panhandle of Texas and southern Oklahoma as the system continues to move to the east. But in the west, this is where most of the winter portion of the storm is going to be. Lots of sunshine along the west coast, but over the shoulder in the Rockies, they're looking for 6 inches plus in parts of Colorado, and the storm is moving very, very slowly. Here's what some of the national forecasts look like around some selected cities that we have for you this morning.
Good morning, Pittsburgh. This is Brian Hill in the KDKA Weather Center. We have 46 degrees in the city, 43 out in the suburbs, and it's going to be another great day. Here's the forecast. Mainly sunny and mild, high 65 to 70 degrees, depending on where you are in town.
Coming up in our next half hour, I'll be having something very special for all of you Halley Comet watchers. Forrest?
Thanks very much, Kevin. We are continuing our coverage of the bombing on Flight 840. Now, a look at what happened in the skies over Greece. That Boeing 727 had taken off from Rome with 121 people on board. Most had just transferred from a transatlantic flight that was from Los Angeles and then after that, New York. From Rome, they left for Athens and would have headed from there to Cairo. At 2:05 p.m. local time, Flight 840 was on its downward slope, nearly 3 miles up and en route to Athens. With a bang and a brilliant flash, a bomb exploded in the cabin. It tore a 3-foot by 3-foot gash in the right side of the fuselage, causing a drop in the cabin pressure. That bomb went off under seat 10F, blowing the seat and its passenger out of the plane. Behind him in seats 11E and F were a mother with her daughter and her baby granddaughter. All 3 were sucked out through the hole. Because of the low altitude at the time of the blast, the jet was able to continue flying to make a safe landing 10 minutes later in Athens. The 4 bodies were later found. 3 of them were on the ground. The 4th was in the sea. Now, we've already heard some brief comments about what the experiences of the people inside that plane were. Let's get a closer look. We'll want to talk now to Julius Schachter and his son, Mark, 18 years old. They are in Athens now. Both are from Corte Madera, California. And gentlemen, good morning. Mr. Schachter, if I could begin with you, where were you seated?
I was seated about 15 rows back and 26 right across the aisle.
What were you doing at just before the bomb exploded?
Sitting there, rather dully looking forward.
And what happened?
Well, there was a very explosive sound, very sudden bang noise, and there was instant decompression. This is all occurring while we had started our decline. And there was a lot of black smoke toward the front of the plane, which immediately was sucked out. A lot of white, fluffy material was floating around. The overhead, some of the cabins opened, but the overhead oxygen masks dropped in most places. In some places, there was a little mechanical assistance required to get them down. The plane shuddered, went into a much more precipitous decline for just a couple of seconds, and then the pilot got it under control again.
Mark, you were seated beside your father?
No, I was across the aisle and 1 seat back farther.
What did you think that pop or that bomb explosion was initially?
A bomb.
You did? It crossed your mind right then that a bomb had hit the plane?
Yeah, well, there was nothing else that we could think of that could do it. I think most people thought it was a bomb.
Now, as that plane, as your father described, it began dropping down, were you terrified? Were you stunned?
Actually, I was shocked, and my method of dealing with the shock, my contact lens flew out when the bomb went off, and I was busy trying to find my contact lens while everybody else thought we were about to die. So I was not really too scared until I got off the plane and saw actually what had happened. I was more concentrating on finding my contact lens.
So really, during the experience, the shock of it all just caused you to blank out what was going on?
I think so.
Mr. Schachter, what about you?
Well, the real panic for me was when we changed the rate of descent. And, you know, I think the immediate thought was that it was a bomb. And when we started just really going down, there was a moment when I thought that was it. And that didn't last very long. The captain got the plane under control very quickly. And as soon as we straightened out, you know, I felt reasonably confident.
You must be very grateful to the pilot, I would imagine, sir.
I am to the pilot. The stewardesses were extraordinary, I thought. They had an interesting initiation to their jobs because I spoke afterward to some of them, and apparently they are among the replacement stewardesses because of the TWA strike. And this was their third flight.
Mr. Schachter, Mark, thank you both for talking to us, and we're glad that you're safe and on the ground.
Well, thank you. I'm sorry that other people are not.
Yeah. Yes, sir, as we all are. It is now 15 minutes past the hour.
American tourism to Greece is down between 50 and 60% over last year.
I think you don't have to travel on cruise ships in Greece or maybe go through the Athens airport.
Please come to 9 room. Dr. Tyson, Dr. Tyson. Surgery grand rounds, please.
When you have call waiting, really important calls will always get through.
I tell you that. Esther, hold on. I have another call waiting. Hello?
Hello, Mom. It's a boy. Get call waiting. Call Bella, Pennsylvania at 1-800-462-2880.
The fun, all the shows A to Z and the facts. What's behind what you see? TV Guide, the whole world of TV. That's entertainment. The stars underneath all the glow and the news from the people who know. TV Guide, it's a fabulous show. So buy a TV Guide and read TV Guide. That's entertainment.
Take any combination from the entire Eagle family of fine clothing labels at special 2 for sale prices at all Anders stores because we are the sole distributor. Anders.
Here's to the times that we shared, the years we were there, best of friends through thick and thin. Yeah, we've done it all together. There's nothing any better. Picture of you. We are the picture of you, all we do. KD and you.
Watch carefully. You're about to get a glimpse of the future. It's time we recognize kids for what they really are.
We are continuing right now with our coverage of the bombing on Flight 840 by asking who did it. We'll ask our guests about the terrorists themselves and how to stem this tide of violence. In just the last year, we've seen the hijacking of a TWA jet and the killing of a Navy diver on board, the taking of the cruise ship, the Achille Lauro, and the taking of an elderly American's life. We've seen brutal attacks on airports in Rome and Vienna 2 days after Christmas, and now the bombing of a jet in flight and the loss of 4 lives. We'll talk about how to explain this and how to stop it with our guests in Washington. Neil Livingstone is the president of the Institute on Terrorism and Subnational Conflict. With him is Middle East expert Fouad Ajami of Johns Hopkins University. He also serves as a consultant to CBS News. Good morning, gentlemen. Fouad, let me begin with you. The group claiming responsibility for yesterday's bombing calls itself the Arab Revolutionary Cells. Who are these people and who are they fronting for?
Maria, I wish I could tell you. I mean, as you said in your opening statement, it's a long story. We know that Americans are being targeted. We know that Europe itself and European airports are the battleground. I mean, this is where these terrorist groups, which can't get at the U.S. itself, can get at it in European airports. Largely, if we're talking about the Palestinians, I mean, the large Palestinian world has 3 centers. There is a Palestinian world that answers to Yasser Arafat, and I doubt if he would associate himself with this kind of deed. There is a Palestinian number of organizations in Damascus, and they are slightly more radical. And then there is this large Palestinian shadowy world which answers to Abu Nidal and Muammar al-Gaddafi. And finally, I would just myself add that I doubt if even Gaddafi himself would be implicated in it now, because he would prefer to lie low. It's too early for him to do anything.
So you're saying Abu Nidal then, right, or what?
Well, we don't know. I mean, I wish I could give you an answer. I mean, I think it would be too early to take a guess at this time.
Italian authorities are saying they do not think this situation yesterday can be linked to what happened last week in the Gulf of Sidra. Do you think that's true?
My own sense is that Gaddafi himself has seen the determination of President Reagan to break him. And my own feeling, my own reading of Gaddafi is he would rather wait now, and he would not take a chance, that he would not want to do anything that would provoke American wrath at this time.
Mr. Livingstone, we have asked this question many times before, especially in the last year. What can we do? How do we retaliate? When are we helpless?
Well, I think the first thing we have to do is not to overreact. Some 25 million Americans traveled abroad last year, and only 161 were victims of terrorist incidents. Your chances of being a target of a terrorist incident are less than 1 in a million.
But still, these acts strike terror in everybody, not just the people that are affected by it, but the nation as a whole.
Absolutely, and that's because, in part, of the attention that they receive in the media. I think that we need to continue the same things that we've been doing. Just as terrorism will continue, we need to accelerate the firmness with which we respond to terrorism. We need to go after the state sponsors of terrorism.
Could you be specific about that?
Well, I have long advocated turning the hunters into the hunted. And I think that we do need to target individual terrorists and terrorist groups, and we need to regard this as war. And if that means going to war with those terrorists, if it means killing them, I think that's the situation that we're at. At the same time, I think that we need to put increased pressure, as the President has been doing, on the state sponsors of international terrorism, those nations like Libya and Iran.
Let me understand that if you're saying turn the hunters into the hunted, are you talking about getting rid of Gaddafi?
Well, I think he's one of the state sponsors. I'm talking more directly about the actual expediters of terrorist acts, people like Abu Nidal, like this so-called Mansour. I think that we need to go find those people wherever they are. It's not an easy thing to do. It means that we have to step up our intelligence capabilities. It means that we have to continue to develop and pre-position our special operations capabilities. But at the same time, as part of that same program, we need to work with our allies for greater international cooperation. And where that fails, and where we don't get help from countries like Italy, that's going to make military action against the state sponsors of terrorism like Libya all the more inevitable.
Mr. Ajami, going after these groups, as you mentioned, they're so diverse, there's so many different factions. Can we actually pinpoint who did this? And
Maria, we have no smoking gun. We don't know who's doing all these things. And a great power, a great liberal power, cannot simply go out and make, you know, I mean, this image that Mr. Livingstone used, said we should make people hunted. I mean, a great liberal power cannot run amok. The U.S. has great responsibilities in the Mediterranean. She has a wide responsibilities in the Arab world. There is a peace process that she needs to resurrect. And this notion that simply we can go and we can just simply hunt after people is somewhat tempting. I mean, it's on a frustrating day. People can say all these things, but I'm sure after we say it, we don't have any evidence.
Okay.
And where would we go and strike?
Professor
I mean,
Ajami,
the question.
Thank you very much, Professor Ajami. Neil Livingstone for joining us this morning from Washington. It is now 23 minutes past the hour, and we'll be back.
Yeah, I personally think that it's going to come to the United States because we have such an open society there. It's just unfortunate, but we probably are next in line for this type of thing.
Jump!
What's that say?
We guarantee the lowest price. If you find the same thing for less within 30 days, we'll refund the difference, plus 10%.
That's ancient history.
Look, now we refund the difference, plus 25%. That's incredible.
Oh, now everybody'll know.
It's not a secret anymore.
Morning. I'm Trapper Jack Elliott, and while you're in there getting ready for work, we're already out here in your car waiting for you. We're 3WS at 95 FM, and every morning we've got the classic hits of the 60s, 70s, and the 80s. We've got Dave Berner working on news and sports. Have the latest AccuWeather forecast, expecting rain, and up-to-the-minute traffic reports as well. How's Parkway? Yeah, so take us along and hear what you're missing on 3WS at 95 FM.
Classic hits of the 60s, 70s, and 80s. 3WS at 95 FM.
The loan committee will see you now.
Small business expansion equity countermands unfavorable risk exposure.
Fiscally negating capital accessibility.
Equibank is here to help small business stay in business. We've got the money to loan you, and we'll always be here when you need us. At Equibank, small business gets a lot of bank, not a lot of banker babble.
Entrepreneurial microcosm.
Are transactionally self-terminating.
Equibank, the straight talk bank.
The total look, that's our business, the professional woman.
This is Eyewitness Newsbreak.
A good Thursday morning to you, Pittsburgh. I'm Kimberly Adams, along with Brian Hill, who's got some more good news for us.
Great today. Got some wetness coming for tomorrow, mind you, but 43 degrees right now and rising. Lots of sunshine out there. Tell you when to expect some rain to give relief to some of these fires that are burning. All of that coming up in the weather in just a minute. First, this morning's news headlines. Here's Kimberly.
Brian, speaking of fire, you could see fire all over the Golden Triangle early this morning. That's what city firemen are saying about a 4-alarm blaze that destroyed a building and damaged another on Grandview Avenue on Mount Washington. Officials say the flames broke out at just after 1 this morning in a vacant building at 325 Grandview and spread to 327 Grandview. Everyone in that second building escaped unharmed. 2 firefighters had to be treated at area hospitals. Damage is estimated at $100,000. A suspect accused of raping and killing a Butler County woman in January may finally have his preliminary hearing today. Donald Tedford of Greensburg was arrested late in February and charged with the death of Janine Revac of Mars. Revac's body was found in the woods of Washington County on January 11th. The hearing has been postponed several times, but Tedford is scheduled to answer those charges today in Butler County Court. As we've been hearing from CBS all morning long, 121 people were on board that TWA Flight Tuesday when a bomb exploded. Well, one of the lucky ones to make it out of the tragedy alive was a young stewardess from Meadville, Pennsylvania. Cynthia Lynn Purdy was just 5 rows away from where that bomb went off. After the plane landed, she called her parents back home to tell them she was okay.
I knew she was out on this flight, and she says, I'm in Athens and I'm okay. And when she said that, I knew something had happened. And she said that a bomb had gone off in the plane, but the pilots were able to bring the plane down safely. And she just wanted to get a hold of us and let us know.
It was Ms. Purdy's 4th week as a TWA stewardess. She says the tragedy hasn't changed her mind about her new career. She still wants to be a flight attendant. Local American Indians want to be sure Indian artifacts in the path of a new highway are properly cared for. PennDOT is building a section of the I-279 expressway through the North Hills, and part of its path crosses Indian campsites. Members of the Indian community met last night with PennDOT and were assured that any Indian artifacts will be retrieved or documented before that pavement goes down. And coming up in just 60 seconds, the weather details with Brian Hill. Stay with us.
What's better than a Whitty Brothers sport coat? What's better than a Medishade sport coat? What's better than a Giorgio San Angelo or Eagle sport coat? How about 2 Whitty Brothers sport coats for just $99? How about 2 Medishade sport coats for just $139? How about 2 Giorgio San Angelo or Eagle sport coats for just $179? How about all the incredible 2 for values that only Anders can offer? Because Anders is the sole distributor of the fine family of great Eagle labels. Only Anders names names for less.
Do you have a wallpaper that can match this?
Right now at Sherwin-Williams, save on hundreds of wall covering patterns in stock, plus hundreds you can order, including the Gear Collection and Laura Ashley by Rangery. Prints for your kitchen or bath, classics for your dining room, colors for your kids' room, almost anything you can imagine now on sale.
That's it! Do you have a lamp department? Sherwin-Williams.
You know, folks, we forget how cold it's supposed to be at this time of year. 42 right now. Our average high is 45. So when we get up to about 70 degrees today, it's going to feel just terrific. And don't forget, it's supposed to be close to 45 degrees.
As far as our national daytime high temperatures are concerned, you can see we're just going to be on the edge of the 70s here. Some of us will hit the upper 60s or the mid 60s today. And as far as travel weather is concerned, well, let's take a close-up look at it right here. There is some shower activity just going through Champaign, Illinois, and headed to the east. We won't catch this until late day tomorrow, but there is rain around, and Raleigh-Durham has a little bit of a shower right now, all because they're on the edge of this cooler air that's pumping to the south. And I'll tell you, folks, all you need is a conflict in the upper atmosphere, cool air banging into warm air, and you have this storm set off. So we'll have a little bit of a wet end to Friday, but a great day today. Here's the forecast as I prepared it in the KDKA Weather Center. Mainly sunny and mild, 65 to 70 degrees, depending on where you are in town. And tonight, well, fair and cool, low 45, a nice night for sleeping and for Friday. Cloudy with afternoon showers and a high 72 degrees. So even though it will be wet by tomorrow afternoon, it'll also be warm and perhaps give some relief to the fires that are burning.
All right, we'll be back in 55 minutes with more weather and more news coming your way. Right now, back to the CBS Morning News in New York.
The CBS Morning News continues with Maria Shriver and Forrest Sawyer.
Good morning once again. The investigation into the bombing of TWA Flight 840 seems to be moving very quickly. Italian police think they know who did it and how, and we'll have the latest in just a moment. We will also be talking with two American businessmen who have to risk traveling with terror on a regular basis, and we'll find out how this recent event has affected that.
There are, thank heavens, other things to talk about this morning, and also this half hour on a much lighter note, a conversation with the king of the miniseries. He is a first-rate actor, Richard Chamberlain, here to tell us about his latest project. And the executive director of the Baseball Players Association will be joining us, and we'll be looking at that continuing controversy over drug tests for players. But first, let's get the latest news. Here at the news desk is Faith Daniels.
Forrest, Italian police have a theory this morning about how the bomb got on board TWA Flight 840. They say a known Arab terrorist flew on the same plane a day earlier and probably left a bomb on board when he disembarked. Luggage from the Boeing 727 jet was carefully unloaded this morning in fear that another bomb may have been on board. FBI agents are due in Athens today to assist in the investigation. Even before the TWA bombing, extra security was planned for Vice President Bush on his trip to the Persian Gulf. Bush leaves Washington this evening, and officials say all prudent measures are being taken to protect him. He'll be visiting Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Oman, and North Yemen. Deborah Potter joins us live now at the State Department. Deborah, does the government plan to issue an advisory to American travelers because of the bombing?
So far, there is no such plan, Faith. U.S. officials are urging Americans who are in the Middle East planning to go to that region to exercise caution, to be very careful, but they are not planning a formal traveler's advisory, which is a warning to stay away from a particular area. They say that this region is so large and the threat is so diverse, so diffuse, if you will, that they cannot really issue a particular kind of a ban. So at the moment, it's just a warning, a caution, but not a traveler's advisory per se.
Deborah, has there been any reaction from the State Department on this Italian theory that a known Arab terrorist left the bomb on board?
So far, there has not been, but you can expect that U.S. officials will be looking into it very carefully. They also came up with nothing when they ran a check last night on the Arab revolutionary cells which claimed responsibility for the bombing. They're still trying to figure out just what kind of a group it is. It's believed to be a Palestinian renegade sort of group, which does use this kind of tactic in making terrorist attacks. The airplane bombing has not in the past been linked to Libya's Muammar Gaddafi, but officials here say they can't rule out the possibility that Gaddafi has been using these revolutionary groups to act as his surrogates or freelancers.
A moment ago, we said that Vice President Bush was going ahead with his plans to go to the Persian Gulf area. Was that ever in question at all in light of what happened yesterday?
His staff says that it was not. They have always planned to go ahead. In fact, they have been planning tight security ever since last week, of course, given the threat by Gaddafi to retaliate for the action in the Gulf of Sidra. So they have already got security about as tight as they can get it. We can expect to see, for example, escort fighter planes for the Bush aircraft in the region, as Secretary of State Schultz had when he traveled to the Mediterranean last week. Security may be a little more visible. It was already going to be extremely tight.
All right, thank you very much, Deborah Potter at the State Department. With news of a jetliner bombing, a lot of potential air travelers might be expected to stay home. But Anthony Mason found some who are going right ahead with their travel plans.
This is your flight number. The gate is 38. It's up this
In New York last night, dozens of passengers lined up for TWA Flight 840 to Rome and Athens, apparently unintimidated by what had happened to the airline's earlier flight with the same route and the same number.
You just can't stop living because of a few terrible things that happened.
The odds are that nothing's going to happen again, and on this flight, if it happens, it happens.
But this latest act of terrorism did have an immediate impact on some other international travelers.
For the first time ever, I got flight insurance. I travel often and I've never done that before.
And travel industry experts fear the explosion aboard Flight 840 can only further weaken an overseas tourist industry already suffering in part because of the weakened dollar.
But mainly because of the terrorist activities that's taken place in the last 12 months. Business is down.
Down almost 25% to Europe and 50% to the Middle East, areas Americans are increasingly afraid to travel.
From what I see, it's easier for a terrorist to get on a plane and threaten somebody overseas than it is here.
Europe's loss has been America's gain. In fact, experts say this could be the best year in a decade for domestic tourism, in part because Americans increasingly feel they're safer spending a few days in Florida than risking a Flight 840 overseas. Anthony Mason, CBS News, New York.
We will continue our coverage of the bombing of Flight 840 throughout the morning, but for now, Forrest.
Faith, if there was ever a doubt that spring is here, you have only to look at Kevin O'Connell, who is filling in for Steve Baskerville while he's on vacation.
Well, some people look through the world through rose-colored glasses. I do it through rose-colored jackets.
Looks terrific. Thanks for coming in from KCBS.
Yes, sir. No problem.
Looking at the weather map, it looks like all kinds of battles are raging on.
What would you think of if I were to say the Hatfield and McCoys?
I would think of this weather map.
That's what happens when cold air and warm air collide. We got a major winter storm working for us. Let's start out with today's map, and we'll give you an idea of what we can expect for the next couple of hours. Thunderstorms will be rumbling this morning from northern Texas and maybe even some tornadoes later today. It's certainly not out of the ballpark. That'll be moving all the way up into the northern parts of Kansas. On the backside, we had 3 inches of snow on the ground at Denver, 50-mile-an-hour winds at Cheyenne, so obviously blizzard-like conditions in the Rockies. It's mostly in the form of rain right now, but then again, these real cold temperatures have not started to invade the east. East is going to have a beautiful day today. In the temperature department, we've been watching the swell of cold temperatures last couple of days, and you can see how these cool numbers are starting to work their way to the east. Sooner or later, we'll start replacing these 50s, but again, this is where the storm activity is going and coming from, and it is very sluggish indeed. That's what our national weather picture looks like right to the moment. Here's some forecasts for some selected cities around the nation today.
Good morning, Pittsburgh. This is Brian Hill in the KDKA Weather Center. We have 46 degrees in the city, 43 out in the suburbs, and it's going to be another great day. Here's the forecast. Mainly sunny and mild, high 65 to 70 degrees, depending on where you are in town.
Just a reminder for you that the next couple of weeks, the best viewing of Halley's Comet, and tomorrow on the morning news, we're going to have something very special. Looks like it's going to be a stormy Tuesday for many parts of the United States. I'll be having our weather watch areas coming up for you in the next half hour. Maria and Forrest.
We'll check in on that in just a few minutes.
Maybe you'll have a jacket like Kevin's.
I know, that's awfully daring, but maybe I'll try that.
Awfully daring. Well, you can try it on afterwards.
All right.
But when we come back, we're going to learn what terrorism means to the American business traveler who's got to travel.
I think we can't stop living, and if we're going to go into a little box and hide ourselves, we're not going to serve any purpose, and we just have to go about our lives as normally as we can.
Most of us dream of investing in real estate, but all we see are barriers. We don't know enough. We don't want the headaches of managing property. We don't have the money, and on and on and on. At Integrated Resources, we manage over $9 billion in real estate investments. And with our help, you can make major real estate investments. Barriers? We don't see any barriers. Integrated Resources, because there's money to be made.
Get real fruit energy, concentrated in Del Monte fruit snacks like yogurt raisins or tropical fruit mix. Tasty, chewy snacks packed with concentrated fruit energy. They're a powerful good snack.
Get a feel for cotton. The way it feels just right. The way it's soft to your touch. The way it practically takes care of itself. Once you get a feel for cotton, you won't feel like anything else. Look for the True Performance label on Cotton Fresh Sheets by Canon, their natural blend for more cotton and no ironing. Available at Kmart.
We asked 1,000 doctors if stranded on an island, which would they want? Tylenol, extra strength Tylenol, Advil, or Bayer? More doctors chose Bayer, nearly 2 to 1 over extra strength Tylenol. Bayer, the wonder drug that works wonders.
Why did Burt Reynolds punch the director of his new movie? Inquiring minds want to know.
I want to know.
Why is Wayne Newton furious over Julio Iglesias' latest romance? This week's National Enquirer tells you. How can fantasies improve your life? What secrets about Jane Fonda are revealed in her ex-husband's book?
It's in the Enquirer.
How can you talk your way out of sticky situations? Find out in the Enquirer. Over 100 features for people with inquiring minds.
Like me.
We continue with our coverage of the bombing on Flight 840. We've talked about the drop-off in tourism. Let's find out what it's like when your job forces you to travel with terror. Our two guests spend much of their time shuttling around the capitals of Europe and the Middle East. These are troubled areas, the scene of so much violence in recent months. Joining us from London is Nell Stayers. Now, he's a lawyer whose work involves multinational corporations. In our Paris bureau, Thomas McEwan. He is vice president of a French perfume company, which does most of its business with other countries. Mr. McEwan, you hear about these bombings, you heard about this one, and they seem to go on, and we've heard that for some of the best efforts of security forces, still they seem to slip these through. Now, when you get on a plane, does it pass your mind?
I usually figure that when I get on the plane, it's okay. It's waiting in the waiting rooms and walking around the lobbies that I sort of look for bags without somebody accompanying them.
You mean to say that it's inside the airport in the terminal that you're most worried?
Yeah, and also waiting when the bags come out at the end on the baggage claim. I wonder if one of those is not going to go off in my face too. Maybe I'm getting a little paranoid.
What do you think about that, Mr. Stevens? How do you feel as you're passing through an airport? Is it right in the middle of your mind all the time?
Well, I don't know. I think I'm more afraid of being on an airplane that's been bombed or that has a terrorist that's going to take it over just as soon as they close the doors.
I suppose that all of us worry at least a little bit about the safety of a plane, but in old days it used to be just disasters that they were concerned about. But are you more concerned now about your safety as you're passing through these airports and flying?
More aware, I think, Forrest, rather than concerned. I mean, there really isn't very much any of us can do about it. We live in this age of the multinational and the transnational business relationship, and we simply have to fly. But we have to cope with another danger in this dangerous world in which we live.
Now, that's something of a fatalistic attitude, I think, Mr. McEwan. He's simply saying there's not much we can do. We're going to have to accept it as a vagary of life. Do you feel that way?
I'm totally fatalistic about this, but here in Paris, it's not just the airports, but if you go to the train stations or in the metros, you can see that the police have been beefed up. My secretary was a half an hour late to work this morning because they told her she couldn't take her normal metro line because it was a bomb scare. On the Champs-Élysées, as you know, there are constantly bombs going off. And I drive up and down the Champs-Élysées every day to work, but I guess I'm too conditioned to just change my route.
Well, I'll tell you another attitude that could be taken. I spoke with a security specialist who said it could be better. We could have better people who are working on the screening devices and those sorts of things. And I suppose you and your companies could say, I expect more security and put pressure on the terminals and the airlines to do that. But you don't have that feeling.
No, I try to get to the airline terminals as late as possible. But now I have to get there earlier, figuring I won't get through passport control or baggage control. It'll take me a half an hour longer. So even though I know it's for my own good, I still get rather irritated.
Mr. Stevens, and you have that kind of mixed feeling about it, that I still don't want to have to go through all of this?
Well, I used to resent the airplane, the airport check-in and the securities, but, you know, we're all getting accustomed to it now, and I think rather than being resentful, we all appreciate every bit of technology and every bit of police vigilance that can be brought to bear on reducing the risk for us.
What do your families say, Mr. Stevens? Would they say we wish you would fly a little less and be a little safer?
Well, I'm a bachelor, so I don't have to deal quite with that problem like somebody with a young family. But I think all our families are a little bit concerned, but they understand the careers we've chosen, and that for an international lawyer or an American businessman in Paris, that flying is very much part of our jobs.
Catch that question for me, Mr. McEwan. What about your family?
Yeah, well, I have a wife and 2 little kids, and I still travel as much, but it is sometimes with a heavy heart that I walk out the door. But I have, for example, a trip to Israel that I'm leaving on Sunday for a couple days, but it hasn't occurred to me to change it. But when I look on the front of the Herald Tribune and see a big hole in the TWA plane, it does make me stop and think a few seconds.
Mr. McEwan in Paris, Mr. Stevens in London, thank you both for talking with us this morning.
Thank you.
It's now 16 minutes before the hour.
The thing is, if you wait around and are scared to leave the island, I think they're winning out a little bit too much. It's not going to affect me. I'm not going to travel to Libya or to Lebanon or anything like that.
This portion of the CBS Morning News is sponsored by Kellogg's Bran Flakes, the great tasting way to help keep yourself fit on the inside.
3 and 4 and 5.
Just one more routine to go.
Oh, no.
This one helps keep you fit inside.
Fit inside?
It's Kellogg's Bran Flakes. You get lots of fiber to help keep your insides fit and running smooth.
Oh.
And 100% of the iron you need each day.
How do they taste?
Really good. Come on, you'll like this exercise. You just lift the spoon. Ooh. Kellogg's Bran Flakes does the rest.
Kellogg's Bran Flakes. Take care of the inside.
Now, for the power computer user who demands performance, Radio Shack introduces the Tandy 3000, the more powerful and more affordable IBM PC AT compatible. Here's the power to manage your business, utilize computer networking, or create a multi-user system. The Tandy 3000, the power to put you in command. Tandy, clearly superior, in business for business, only at Radio Shack Computer Centers.
Women have such busy schedules today with their work
Now input your code.
and their families. There's no time for irregularity.
Come on, Mom, we'll have fun. Not just now. Okay.
Yet women suffer from constipation 3 times more often than men. That's why there's Correctol. Its special formula with calcium added combines a mild laxative with a softening agent. It works gently overnight to help you feel like yourself again.
Your sir's really improved, Mom.
Correctol, the gentle laxative so many women prefer.
Announcing the Ace No Track Snap Lock Heavy Load Easy Buy Save Cash Sale.
The what?
The April Best Buys, like this AstroTurf doormat for just $2.88.
No tracks.
This Ace 32-gallon trash container.
Has a snap lock lid.
Only $5.49 with the $2.50 rebate. The Ace 33-gallon
Heavy load.
large trash and lawn bags are just $2.33.
Easy buy.
With the Ace Helpful Hardware credit card.
And save cash on all the other bargains in the Ace April Circular. The Ace No Track Snap Lock Heavy Load Easy Buy Save Cash Sale.
Well, many people call Richard Chamberlain the king of the miniseries, and it is no wonder. He starred in Shogun, The Thornbirds, Centennial, and Wallenberg, A Hero Story. And starting this week, a week from Sunday, he'll be featured in a new 3-part special called Dream West.
I can imagine a time
West about the adventurer John Charles Fremont, and the star is, of course, Richard Chamberlain, and he is here with us this morning. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Maria.
I was watching you watch that clip, and you were staring at it very intently. What were you thinking about?
Well, I hadn't seen that scene before, and I liked the scene. I was very fond of the scene when we did it, and I just wanted to see how I did.
How'd you do?
The first time, well, okay. The first time I watch any part of anything I've done, I mean, my attention is riveted on my performance. I don't see anything else. It's like lighting people when they see the first rushes. All they see is the lights, and the cameraman, all he sees is the focus. And for actors, all you see is yourself the first time.
Are you very critical of your own performance? A lot of actors say, I don't want to see it because I get so insecure about it.
I've watched dailies ever since I started at Dr. Kildare 1,000 years ago, and I find it extremely useful. Because if you watch rushes the next day or the day after, you remember how you felt when you were acting, and you can see what the result was, so you can kind of begin to balance the two.
Let's talk a little bit about this mini-series, about the West, about a man who helped shape the West. How did you become familiar with it? What was it about this character that you said, I want to play this man?
Well, I grew up in California, but I didn't know anything about Fremont. I wasn't a very hot history student either. But he had one of the most spectacular, dramatic careers in American history, and he's really not known very well. First of all, he mapped the Oregon Trail, which was a phenomenal accomplishment, and opened up the western part of the continent to migration from the east. We were just a tiny little, well, relatively small country on the east coast, and the whole western part of the continent was was available, semi-available. We had this idea of manifest destiny, of spreading clear across to the Pacific, and Fremont pretty much made that possible with his mapping. And then he conquered California with about 60 men at the beginning of the Mexican-American War. He was the first governor of California. Then he went through a horrible court-martial and was convicted of mutiny.
A lot of ups and downs.
Oh, his career was like a roller coaster, incredible.
But this is a very different story about the West than the cowboy and Indians and the Westerns we've seen in the past. Do you think it will appeal to people? Do you think people are fascinated with the West enough to watch?
Well, it's not really about the West. It's about America exploding into an empire. We think of it, we take our continental being for granted now, but it wasn't taken for granted then at all. It was a huge accomplishment. But it's really about a man, and it's also about his marriage. He was married to the daughter of Thomas Hart Benton, and this marriage was like the backbone of his career, because they'd be fabulously wealthy one moment and riding the top of political fortunes, and then desperately unsuccessful, and then successful again. It was incredible.
Everybody says Richard Chamberlain, king of the miniseries. You had a film out this year. And do you like this format, the way to do these miniseries, much better than the motion picture screen?
I don't like anything much better. I think the I think the miniseries format is great. The time is flexible. They put a lot of extra money and attention into them. It's a good pace for an actor to work about 4 pages a day as opposed to 1 page in a movie. Yeah. And you have time to really get involved in the character and the events. So I really like miniseries.
Well, and you certainly do a lot of them, and congratulations.
Thank
and we
you.
look forward to that. And you said to me earlier that it felt good, so we'll watch.
It felt great.
Terrific. Richard Chamberlain, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Maria.
And we'll be back in just a few minutes. Stay with us.
The time now, 9 minutes before the hour.
About your sandwich, Ned. No Miracle Whip. Check, see if the Zabracki's next door have some.
Got some mayonnaise. Or you could try the Parsons next door.
A sandwich just isn't a sandwich without the tangy zip of Miracle Whip salad dressing, the bread spread from Kraft. See the light. Try Miracle Whip Light reduced calorie salad dressing with 1/3 fewer calories.
Good boys got what it takes. Full tilt, all out, holy flakes. Nothing halfway, nothing sweet. Just a great big crunch of good whole wheat. Yeah, hey, banana, move aside. These big flakes got nothing to hide. Wheaties, Wheaties, good whole wheat. Now go tell your mama what the big boys eat.
Reunity, it tastes so fine. Reunity, pure and natural wine. Reunity, ice. Reunity, so nice. Reunity, Reunity.
Have a little Reuniti on us. April is Reuniti Tasting Month. Try America's best-loved imported wine on us. Look for details in April magazines or look for Reuniti store displays.
Have a little Reunity.
On us.
Mom's got an inch on me.
And I intend to keep it. So to supplement my diet, I take Avail.
Avail is the calcium-intensive multivitamin.
None of the leading multivitamins has the full calcium supplement I need.
Avail does.
In fact, all these vitamins put together don't contain as much calcium as Avail. To get your vitamins and all the extra calcium you need in one tablet, your multivitamin will be Avail.
Avail, the calcium-intensive multivitamin.
It's now 7 minutes before the hour, and here's the weather forecast. A nasty day is on tap for the nation's midsection as heavy windswept rain pelts the northern plains and some potentially dangerous thunderstorms erupt across the southern plains. At the same time, parts of the eastern Rockies could receive a foot of snow.
Well, baseball fans, Major League Ball is now less than a week away, but there is an important issue. It is the issue of drug testing for players that's still very much up in the air during this final week of spring training. Hearings have begun in New York City over a grievance filed by the Players Association. It charges that the random drug testing clauses that we've heard so much about in the contracts of some players are simply invalid. Now, as the players group sees it, drug tests should be a matter for collective bargaining. The executive director of the Players Association, Donald Fehr, joining us here this morning. Essentially, what has been happening, if I can boil it down, is that owners have been, as they've negotiated some hefty contracts, have said, we also want a clause that says we can test to see if you've been using drugs throughout the season. Is that?
Well, it's more than that. The collective agreement we had was terminated by the owners the day of the third game of the World Series. Thereafter, they began to insist on drug testing clauses, not only in hefty contracts, but in very small, non-guaranteed contracts, even for some minor league players.
How many of the players have such a clause?
Of the contracts that were negotiated between October of last year and the beginning of the season, our guess is about 65 to 70%. However, most of those were negotiated after a point in time in which we advised the players that the matter had to be handled collectively, that in our view, all of the clauses were invalid.
So how many of them are unhappy that that clause is in there and would like it stricken?
Oh, I think virtually all of them.
Truly? Haven't some of the players asked that those clauses be put in there so that the image of baseball can be improved?
Oh, I think there are some players that have indicated that in order to prove a point for a short time, they'd be willing to do it. I don't know of any significant number of players who are in favor of a mandatory requirement of testing as a condition of employment over a long period.
Don't you have a public relations problem in this sense? You know the enormous publicity that has surrounded the use of drugs by some very prominent baseball players. And what they are saying is, look, let's clean this game up, and one way we can do it is test people throughout the game. And what is wrong with doing that?
Well, there is a public relations issue out there, and it's been skillfully exploited by a number of people. And everybody wants to clean it up. I don't think there's any dispute about that. The dispute we have is over methods and how we agree upon those methods. The question that comes down to random drug testing is really, do we test Sam because Fred has a problem? The prior agreement that we had included drug testing for any individual whenever there was a reason to do it for that individual. What it did not include is we test everybody because a few people have had a problem. The real question, I think, is, are we moving in a direction in which we say that we will, in effect, suspect everybody all the time, and the price of employment will be that you'll be constantly under suspicion and have to prove yourself innocent? That's a rather radical change in the direction not only of how baseball works, but how the country works.
How's this going to work? When are we going to have a decision on this?
Well, can't say precisely. I'm reasonably confident it'll be in not more than 45 days, hopefully before that.
So it's an arbitrator. That arbitrator will then decide essentially what?
He will decide whether it is permissible for players and clubs to individually negotiate drug testing clauses or whether it must be negotiated with the union.
So all of those clauses that have been in the contracts will then either be thrown out or not?
That's correct.
Donald Fehr, who is with the Players Association, thank you for talking with us this morning, and we'll be watching for the decision.
Thank you.
And Maria?
Thank you very much, Forrest. Well, still ahead this morning, we'll find out how terrorism is affecting tourism. Olympic ice dancers Torvill and Dean will be here to talk about their new show. We'll have a conversation with prize-winning cartoonist Jeff MacNelly. And we will also be talking with Star Trek creator Gene Roddenberry. All of that today and even tomorrow. We're going to talk to Brooke Shields, and we'll also be meeting actor Richard Crenna. And, of course, Warner Wolf will be here. But there's a lot more on the broadcast for today. We hope you stay with us.
Most watched for 5 years running. More trusted in 2 separate independent polls. Voted best by the Washington Journalism Review 2 years in a row. When America makes a choice, it's not by chance. Watch Dan Rather weeknights on the CBS Evening News. We keep America on top of the world.
Beginning Sunday, April 13th, a man with a vision and the only woman who could share in the dream.
Charles is gonna make a mark on our time.
2 lovers on a rendezvous with destiny.
The future's in the West, Jesse.
And the one man who could put a stop to it.
You have taken advantage of my daughter.
Richard Chamberlain as an American hero who took his dream west.
This is CBS.
If you need a raincoat and you want to save money, there's one place you have to shop. Burlington Coat Factory. Burlington has more raincoats and all-weather coats than you've ever seen under one roof. You save money on every one. Whether you're looking for a trench coat, a removable lining, or a single-breasted classic like this, you'll see more, save more at Burlington. Burlington Coat Factory. A great place to save on the raincoat you want.
Warm moments, she's such a delight. Rub-a-dub, baby, the water's just right. Snuggle down cozy, baby, sleep tight. Let our gentle flame keep you warm tonight. Warm moments for those warm would you like gas?
Warm is what natural gas is all about. Clean, efficient, and in most areas, the lowest priced fuel. Shouldn't it be in your home?
Nothing warms you like gas.
Take this iWorks eye test. Have you ever seen an eye care store this complete? Where a doctor of optometry gives you a total eye exam? Can you see the over 4,000 frames to choose from? Now focus on our computer that helps you choose just the right frames, our contact lens center, and ultra-fast service from our in-store lab. Is it clear the iWorks is the eye care superstore? Then you've got 20/20 vision. Call for an exam or bring your prescription to the iWorks. Glasses fast, glasses right.
Hi, I'm Barbara Bottom from East Hilton watching KDKA TV2.
From what I see, it's easier for a terrorist to get on a plane and threaten somebody overseas than it is here. The security here is much better than overseas.
More and more American tourists are reaching that conclusion, and they're steering away from overseas travel. Tourism is becoming a victim of terrorism. We'll ask how you can make your trip safer as our coverage of the bombing on Flight 840 continues on the CBS Morning News. Good morning, everybody. It's Thursday, the 3rd of April. I'm Maria Shriver.
And I'm Forrest Sawyer, and here's the latest we know about the investigation of that TWA bombing. An Arab terrorist, a man known as Mansour, that's a code name, has been identified as the person that police think planted that bomb on board the plane. He had flown on the jet from Cairo to Athens earlier in the day. The FBI has now dispatched agents to the Greek area to join in the investigation, and Athens Airport confirms the plane's flight data recorder is being sent to the United States, where it will be studied.
Forrest will continue looking at the impact of this story on everyone who travels. We'll find out how the travel industry is trying to fight the erosion in overseas tourism. And we'll talk with a man who spent over 20 years fighting terrorism. He maintains that there are specific steps that you should take that will help you reduce your risks when you go abroad. And then later in the morning, we'll shift gears a little bit as we meet cartoonist Jeff MacNelly. He's won a Pulitzer Prize for his editorial cartoons, and he's also the creator of a comic strip called Shoe. And he'll have a conversation with Forrest. And in our last half hour, Olympic skating stars Jayne Torvill and Christopher Dean, and everybody's very excited about them. They say once you have seen them dance on the ice, you'll never forget it. But first, we want to know the latest news. Faith Daniels is at the news desk. Faith?
Thanks, Maria. A major development on the TWA bombing comes from Italy this morning. Italian police have identified a suspect. His code name is Mansour. He boarded the TWA jet in Cairo. He got off in Athens. Under his seat, he apparently left hand luggage and, they believe, a bomb. The bomb exploded later on the flight from Rome to Athens, sending 4 Americans tumbling to their deaths. In Athens, the Greek government is accepting the help of the United States in the investigation. Mark Phillips has the latest there.
The unloading of the TWA 727 airliner began at Athens Airport this morning as the investigation continued into how the bomb had been placed on board. According to U.S. sources here, all 4 victims of yesterday's blast were Americans, 3 of them Greek Americans and 1 man born in Colombia. American investigators from the FAA, the CIA, and the FBI began the inquiry into the bombing this morning. The investigation will center not only on just what happened aboard TWA 840 yesterday, but on how an explosive device was smuggled aboard the aircraft, apparently in hand luggage that passed through either X-ray machines or metal detectors. And today, after a night to think about it, some of the passengers were wondering whether security was tight enough.
We didn't have an X-ray check again in Rome. We were in transit, coming from New York to Rome. We had been checked. We went through transit to this new airplane, but no X-ray.
There was general agreement among the passengers we talked to today that security had in fact been lax for transiting passengers in Rome, but the main operational theory being worked under here is that the explosive device was put on the plane in Cairo by a passenger who got off in Athens on an early leg of the flight. The flight then, of course, continued on to Rome and returned to Athens, and it was on the approach to Athens Airport that the bomb went off. Faith?
All right, thank you very much, Mark Phillips, reporting live from Athens. Of the 4 Americans who died on the TWA jet, 3 were from the same Maryland family. Surviving family members are understandably shocked at their loss. One of the dead is an 8-month-old baby girl. who was with her mother and grandmother on their way to Greece. Another relative was angry.
I believe that in an eye and an eye and a tooth for a tooth. And I believe that if you take a life, your life should be taken, for sure, without any exception. And I think they ought to find them, and I think they ought to kill them.
The fourth American who died was a Connecticut resident, Alberto Ospino. He's survived by a wife and 2 children. The latest bombing incident is, of course, a traveler's nightmare. Tom Fenton joins us live now in London with a report on how fear is affecting the tourist industry abroad. Good day to you, Tom.
Good day, Faith. Well, it's certain that this year is going to be an absolute disaster for American tourism in Europe. Even before this latest tourist outrage, it was clear that the figures were going to be way down. 25% fewer in Western Europe, and for problem areas like Greece, down 75%. In Britain, which normally gets 4 million Americans a year, the TWA bombing sent shockwaves through the tourist industry.
Obviously, it's very disturbing news, and it's terrible news for tourism. We need the Americans in Europe. We want the Americans to come to Europe.
Hotels here that normally overflow with Americans now report an unprecedented number of vacancies for this summer. Harrods department store, a mecca for big spending Americans, now wonders where they've all gone. The few Americans you still find here these days all have a worrying thought in the back of their mind.
The scariest thing about traveling for me was the trip over and the trip back, just because of the plane terrorists.
The best advice I've heard for Americans who still want to fly abroad this summer is take a direct, non-stop flight. Don't break your trip. If you're going to Athens, for example, fly direct from New York and don't stop in Rome. Faith?
All right, good advice, Tom. Thank you very much, Tom Fenton in London. Vice President Bush leaves this evening for the Persian Gulf, and despite the TWA bombing, a spokesman says there will be no changes in his schedule. Officials do say, though, prudent measures will be taken to protect the Vice President, and the Secret Service will be more visible than usual. That's the latest from the news desk. Now we want to go over to Maria.
Thank you very much, Faith. Well, cherry blossoms are out in Washington. That must mean that it's pretty warm. I hope it stays warm so they'll stay out for a while.
Let's keep our fingers crossed we can get through maybe the next 48 hours or so, because if you look over your shoulder, Maria, I think things are coming. I enjoyed your conversation with Richard Chamberlain, and his program's called Dream West, but if we look west, it's no dream. It's more like maybe almost even a nightmarish type of morning. Now, on our radar right now, when you see the heaviest, of course, that would be the red color on your screen, and obviously the more Kelly green would be certainly the lightest precipitation. We are picking up a few heavy cells in the nation's interior, but obviously this is all wrapping around a huge storm system on the backside, which is providing snow, and of course that's indicated right here between the Utah-Colorado border. On our map this afternoon, we do have some very important areas that we're going to keep an eye on. Obviously down in the northern parts of Texas through Oklahoma, severe thunderstorms. We're looking for maybe up to a foot of snow at some of the higher elevations of Colorado, also into Utah, and some very gusty winds. It's going to be cooling temperatures and rain showers in the north, but as Maria's already indicated, here in the east it's going to be dynamite. Weather watch areas of concern this afternoon. We have a very heavy risk and a high risk area in the nation's interior, mainly due to those very vicious thunderstorms, 2 air masses colliding, maybe even some tornadoes possibly. We'll keep our fingers crossed things don't develop that way. Gusty winds as far as the north and snow as far as the upper parts of the Rockies are concerned. That's the national weather picture. Here's some forecasts for some selected cities around our country today.
Good morning, Pittsburgh. This is Brian Hill in the KDKA Weather Center. We have 46 degrees in the city, 43 out in the suburbs, and it's going to be another great day. Here's the forecast. Mainly sunny and mild, high 65 to 70 degrees, depending on where you are in town.
I think last hour somebody called the newsroom and convinced me that today is Thursday, Forrest, and not Tuesday, as I said a little bit earlier. My fault. You'll get the microwave in the mail. We'll be taking a look at tomorrow coming up in our next half hour.
All right. Thank you, Kevin. It is 8 minutes past the hour. Continue to cover the repercussions of TWA Flight 840 and what happened. For the passengers on board that flight yesterday, of course, it's something they'll never forget. Joining us in Athens is one of those people. He is George Kastritis, a commercial pilot. He was a passenger on board the flight. He's from Villa Park, Illinois. Good morning, sir. I can see from your face that you were hurt by this. I gather that some flying debris hit you. Is that so?
Yes, a little debris hit me in the face.
Are you feeling all right this morning, though, generally?
A little better. It was quite a traumatic experience. Not eating properly yet.
Yeah. Road 29. Can it be that you didn't really know that was a bomb when you heard it go off?
As a matter of fact, my first impression was that it was a depressurization. And it wasn't until later that I realized that the blast would not be a depressurization, that would be a bomb.
This, as it's happening, everything's going very slowly, I imagine, and this was sort of passing through your mind as all the changes were taking place?
Yes, that's pretty much.
Walk us through it. Tell us how that happened. The blast takes place. First you think it's depressurization, then slowly it begins to dawn on you?
That's right. As I say, initially, it was like being in the eye of a tornado. Everything was flying around, debris and insulation from the panel of the aircraft. Oxygen masks were coming down, others were not. Several people I noticed, ours did not come down also, were striking on the overhead cabinet to get the door to open, and it wouldn't open.
Were people, for the most part, calm, though?
There was an initial outcry, and then just calm prevailed, and it was very, very commendable, I think, of the passengers, the crew. I think the crew must be highly commended. The flight attendants especially, even though I understand they're fairly new, they have been trained well, and it showed.
I gather. What about afterwards now, sir? Once you're on the ground, then the shock begins to set into you, I gather, and that sort of is a hard thing to deal with when you realize that people have died, you've lived.
Well, we realized that people had died while we were still in flight, and that was, I know myself and I know of several others that were saying prayers at the time and thanking God that we were alive.
Well, Mr. George Kastritis, we are very happy that things are all right for you, and of course we join your sorrow about what's happened to the passengers. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Let's have a look at how to make air travel safer for all of us. Here's Maria. Maria?
Thank you very much, Forrest. Well, there is considerable evidence that Americans are now going overseas less because they fear violence abroad. A group which monitors the travel trade said trips to Europe and the Mideast will fall drastically this year. Trips to Greece down at least 50%. Trips to Egypt down 85 to 90%, and trips to Italy off 50 to 60%, and to France down 30 to 40%. Well, if you do plan to travel, what can you do to minimize your risk? That's what Jerry Hoffman is going to try to tell us. He is an independent security expert, and when he was in the Air Force, he helped design the Pentagon's anti-terrorist program. Mr. Hoffman joins us this morning from Washington, and good morning, Mr. Hoffman.
Good morning.
You believe that people can actually make traveling safer for themselves. How do they do that?
Well, I think that there are several factors that they can enter into their travel plans. First off, they need to travel differently today than they might have traveled 5 years ago. But it starts with your pre-travel planning, and whether or not the American traveler incurs that responsibility upon himself or utilizes a travel organizer, he needs to make his plans as quickly and as far in advance as possible.
Okay, be a little bit specific with me if you could. People make their travel plans, they get to the plane, they start to get nervous as soon as they get into the airport. What can they do to make sure that they're not a victim in one of these situations?
Well, first off, I think selection of an airline is extremely important. And I personally feel very comfortable utilizing American Airlines. However, there are certain corridors and there are certain routes where airlines such as TWA have been specifically targeted, and possibly you want to avoid these corridors and these routes.
So is it helpful? Our senior European correspondent Tom Fenton was saying earlier that the best advice he had heard was that people should get non-stop flights. Does that help?
I would certainly recommend a straight-through flight. There are flights that go direct from JFK to Athens, and those people that were eventually had a planned destination of Athens certainly should have taken or been advised to have taken a direct flight.
What else can people do once they're in the airport? They have to wait for their bags after they've landed. People are concerned that perhaps there are bombs in these bags. What can they do?
Basically, the two things that stand above everything else is a heightened sense of alertness and awareness. They should certainly do everything possible to minimize their time in the non-secure areas of the airports. They should, if at all possible, have boarding passes already on their person for all points of departure prior to arriving at an airport.
But how can that really help? Someone's on this plane, they've done all of those things, and how do you ever really know if you're going to be a victim in this sort of thing?
Well, you don't know that you're going to be a victim, but the statistics clearly indicate that your chances of being a victim of terrorism are certainly fewer than other things that we engage in on a daily basis.
Would you travel to Europe or the Mideast right now?
I would certainly travel to Europe and the Middle East. In fact, I'm scheduled already for a trip later this month to various points in Europe.
Okay, Jerry Hoffman, thank you very much for joining us this morning from Washington. And it is now 15 minutes past the hour, and we'll be back.
We're not going to stop our way of life just because of some kooks out there. I think then we'd be actually knuckling under to what they want us to do.
Beat the General Motors price increases and still get 9.9 financing until April 12th. Downtown Pontiac has the largest inventory in their history. You can find the car you are looking for and still get 9.9 financing and no dealer add-ons. And they're Pittsburgh's only Pontiac dealer with AAA approved service. So come and get them. Downtown Pontiac, 3/4 of a mile south of the Liberty Tubes on West Liberty Avenue.
When Heads Together Waterbeds has a sale this big, it's a small wonder some extra terrific people come a long way to explore our down-to-earth prices. You'll be as absolutely amazed as this cosmic shopper is with the values at Heads Together Waterbeds out of this world sale.
Hi, can I help you? And where would you like it delivered?
Discover Heads Together Waterbeds and thank your lucky stars you don't have that far to travel.
Torvill and Dean. You saw them win the hearts of millions at the '84 Olympics. Now, for the first time in America, see them in person. The Dal Sassoon presents Torvill and Dean, together with a cast of international skating champions.
Tickets at all choice seat locations.
The Dal Sassoon presents Torvill and Dean, the World Tour, the most dazzling ice spectacular ever.
Born and raised in western Pennsylvania, Don Bailey was an honor student, an all-star athlete in college, and earned degrees in political science and law. He worked on the family farm, and he worked in a steel mill. He's a Vietnam veteran decorated 4 times for bravery. He served with distinction in the United States Congress, was elected Pennsylvania's Auditor General, and is now a candidate for the United States Senate. He's one of the best prepared and most promising new leaders in Pennsylvania. Don Bailey, United States Senate.
Now 17 minutes past the hour. I want you to meet a fellow named Jeff MacNelly, who's got a rather unusual way of looking at life. He is one of the country's most popular editorial cartoonists. But if you keep up with the funny pages, you're also going to find him. There are a flock of bird brains in his comic strip, Shoo. Shoo, of course, the well-known editor of the Treetops Tattler. Now, he says, we've got to find a way here in this strip to find a way to compete with television in handling the news. Professor, who is his ace reporter, says, there are a lot of things we could do. But first, we have to find a kid who can ride his bike at the speed of light. Now, if you missed that strip, you will find it in the latest Shoo collection called, appropriately enough, The Greatest Shoo on Earth. The man behind the pen, 3-time Pulitzer Prize winner Jeff MacNelly. Good morning, Jeff. Where do you put all those Pulitzer Prizes?
I have them in a barn. Keep them in a box just so nothing will happen to them.
Just to keep them out back there. But I figure it's got to be one of two things for people who are editorial cartoonists and who write for the funny pages. Either all the kind of zaniness comes out on the page, and in real life you're very straight and staid, or you're nutsy Fagin.
No, I sell insurance at night, and I'm very straight. No, there's actually it makes a lot of sense to do comic strip as well as political cartoon art, because there really isn't much difference between the front page and the funny pages. I mean, it's the same stuff. We're all crazy. You know?
Is there a difference between how you're approaching the comic strip and how you're approaching the editorial page?
Well, the editorial page is a lot easier to do, the political cartoon, because I've got the greatest gag writers in the world working around the clock for me. I've got Muammar Gaddafi coming up with great stuff. And
let me show you what he means here. I think we got Muammar Gaddafi, or we've got one of them. Can we have a quick look at some of his editorial cartoons? You'll see what I mean, or possibly we won't have a quick look at the editorial cartoons.
Which one was it? The Out of It in Africa one?
Yeah, he's absolutely With a cuckoo clock on his head, so...
Well, that's the thing. It's harder to do the comic strip in a lot of ways because you have to start with a blank sheet of paper and you're working with characters that you're totally responsible for, and you have to invent what they say. Politicians in America are the funniest people around, and all I have to do is take notes.
But you have to walk a delicate line, it seems to me. There are those things that people are going to find funny, and those things they'll say, hey, where's this guy going?
Oh, yeah, they get a
the heck with them.
They get a little upset. My editor gets upset sometimes.
Do you have to clear things?
No, I just draw them, and then he puts them in the paper, and sometimes he makes idiotic decisions and puts them in the paper, and I get in trouble for it, and I don't understand.
What are you trying to do with the editorial cartoon? Are you mostly trying to prick the bubbles of egos, or are you really looking more to make a political statement?
Well, it's a little of both, but the most fun, though, is when you run across somebody who's taking themselves terribly seriously, and then you can just kind of kick them in the rear end or stick your tongue out and expose them for the idiots they are, and that's the most fun. And usually outfits that have the least sense of humor, the smallest bit of humor about themselves, who take themselves the most seriously.
Gaddafi comes to mind.
Right. They're the most fun to do because they get the most irritated.
Now, in Shoe, we should mention that Jeff, of course, works at a paper in Chicago, and Shoe is about a paper.
Right.
So if I'm working on this paper and I see Jeff MacNelly walking by, I'm going to have a tendency to kind of clam up because I'm going to wind up in the strip.
Yeah, there are a lot of guys that have problems with that, and I'm on the editorial board at the Tribune, and a lot of guys sit around and puff pipes and talk about economics and stuff, and I am getting all my ideas for the comic strip in those editorial board meetings, and these guys are terribly gun-shy when they see me walk in, I'm afraid.
Have you had people come storming up to the desk saying, MacNelly, you rascal, what have you done this time?
A lot of them. There are a couple of guys that accuse me of carrying a tape recorder because I do that. And some of the funniest things that I ever come up with are actually true stories. So, all I do is just take notes and wander around the newspaper.
Well, Jeff MacNelly, I got to tell you, I follow both the strip and the editorial cartoons. I think you do a terrific job.
Oh, thank you.
I think you're very weird, but you do a terrific job. Thanks, Jeff. We'll be back in just a moment.
21 minutes past the hour.
Whoa! If a kitchen floor can get this dirty in a couple of days, imagine what gets into your carpets in a couple of months.
That's why I depend on Sears authorized carpet cleaning. You can't clean a carpet like you can a kitchen floor. Deep down, dirt still builds up, no matter how much you vacuum.
But Sears gets that dirt out. And if you call now, you can save $6 on 2 rooms of carpet cleaning. Call 371-7515. That's 371-7515 to take advantage of this spring cleaning special. 2 rooms of carpet cleaning for just $33.98. And you can use your Sears charge. Sale ends April 12th, so call now. 371-7515. That's 371-7515. Satisfaction guaranteed or your money back.
So they clean my carpets about once a year, and I clean my floors, whoa, about once an hour.
There's more for your ride at the Sears.
The total look. That's our business. The professional woman.
Good morning, Scout. Okay, Scout, let's start with Bruce Springsteen.
At 96.1 WHTX, we play Pittsburgh's greatest variety of music. We play your favorites of today.
Lionel Richie,
Hotels, Pointer Sisters, Stevie Nicks,
Sade, and the best of yesterday's hits. The Beatles, the Beach Boys,
Supreme, Rod Stewart, Starship, Fleetwood Mac, The Doors, Elton John,
Stevie Wonder, we're tops.
And we play it all day long.
The variety never stops. 96.1.
Hey, guys, you're on.
WHTX. Good morning.
Time now, 23 minutes after the hour.
Well, here in New York City, a sign of the times. After 9 years of darkness, the famous Times Square news sign is flashing bulletins once again. Back in 1928, the first headline was Hoover beating Smith for president. And the first news item on the sign yesterday was the TWA bombing.
It is good to have the sign back. It seemed a little strange with it gone, didn't it?
Many years.
Many years. We've got some interesting things still planned to come up this half hour.
That's true, we do. We're going to find out whether a brand new line of instant cameras will become the picture of success. Maybe you can take a picture and Polaroid will come right out.
And we're going to meet two skaters who are excellent on ice. They're Olympic champions Torvill and Dean. And I should mention, too, we have been talking this morning since the flight of TWA 840 about how to stay safe in the skies. And we're going to have a conversation with the former head of British airport security. And he's going to talk about the kinds of safety problems that we still have. And he's going to make some very powerful recommendations, I think, for changes. Is it safe if you pass through Rome or through Cairo or Athens? That's the question we're going to put to him.
A lot of people who need to travel will pay close attention to that. So as we leave you this half hour, we're going to take some really pretty pictures, show you some really pretty pictures of Washington where cherry blossoms are out in full bloom. We'll be back.
This is Eyewitness Newsbreak.
Good morning, Pittsburgh. I'm Kimberly Adams, along with Brian Hill. And Brian, if I decided I wanted to go out and try and get in 9 holes of golf later this afternoon, what are my chances of good weather?
Just say 4 and go. It's going to be great. We'll have temperatures today that are going to be warmer than yesterday, but there is some rain in the forecast, and I'll tell you when to expect that. That's coming up in the weather in just a minute. First, this morning's news headlines, and here's Kimberly.
Brian, the story that's been making waves ever since yesterday morning, 121 people were on board that TWA Flight Tuesday when a bomb exploded. Well, one of the lucky ones to make it out of that tragedy alive was a young stewardess from Meadville, Pennsylvania. Cynthia Lynn Purdy was just 5 rows away from where that bomb went off. After the plane landed, she called her parents back home to tell them she was okay.
She was out on this flight, and she says, I'm in Athens and I'm okay. And when she said that, I knew something had happened. And she said that a bomb had gone off in the plane, but the pilots were able to bring the plane down safely. And she just wanted to get a hold of us and let us know.
It was only Miss Purdy's 4th week as a TWA stewardess. She says the tragedy has not changed her mind about her new career. She still wants to be a flight attendant. You could see fire all over the Golden Triangle early this morning. That's what city firemen are saying about a 4-alarm blaze that destroyed a building and damaged another on Grandview Avenue on Mount Washington. Officials say the flames broke out at about 1 this morning in a vacant building at 325 Grandview and spread to 327 Grandview. Everyone in that second building escaped unharmed. 2 firefighters had to be treated at area hospitals. Damage is estimated at $100,000. A suspect accused of raping and killing a Butler County woman in January may finally have his preliminary hearing today. Donald Tedford of Greensburg was arrested late in February and charged with the death of Janine Revac of Mars. Revac's body was found in the woods of Washington County on January 11th. That hearing has been postponed several times, but Tedford is scheduled to answer those charges today in Butler County Court. And coming up in just a minute or so, Brian Hill with our latest weather. Stay with us for some pretty good news.
Why 97 when you have that cooped up feeling?
That's what friends are for.
Why 97? It's a hair better than the rest. Why 97? We could ruffle your feathers. Why 97 FM? Once you listen, you'll never forget us. It works like magic.
It's going to warm up even warmer than it was yesterday. Good morning, everybody. Brian Hill from the KDKA Weather Center. We have a pattern that's setting up for Friday that's going to be out of the Gulf of Mexico and up over top of us. So we not only get the moisture from the Gulf, we get the heat too. So we can expect some stickiness and some wetness to be around our area. Today, you can see these 70s are nudging up closer and closer to us, and some portions of Pittsburgh will get up to about 70 degrees and into the mid-60s for other parts of town. And as far as the close-up look at our area, this is how it's shaping up as far as travel weather is concerned this morning. A little bit of precipitation near Raleigh-Durham this morning. In general, the rest of the weather action is over by the Great Lakes, just coming into Champaign, Illinois, and not yet to Indianapolis, but it's heading to the east slowly today. And as far as what we can expect as far as the surface analysis, it looks like this. High pressure, cool temps, the cold air clashing with the warm air, and the thunderstorms are brewing out west. Here's the forecast as I prepared it in the KDKA Weather Center for today. Mainly sunny and mild, high 65, 70 degrees in some portions of town. And for tonight's sleeping, just fine. Fair and cool, low 45 degrees. And tomorrow the big changes come. Cloudy with afternoon showers and a high 72, even though it'll be wet late in the day. So you can't complain about that either. It's going to be a wonderful day today.
Brian, we have just enough time to mention that Gary and Debbie Thomas of KDKA yesterday had their first little baby girl, Asia Nicole, 7.5 pounds. And of course, we send our best wishes to the entire family. And we hope you join us again at noon. Now back to CBS.
The CBS Morning News continues with Forrest, Sawyer, and Maria Shriver.
Good morning again. Terrorists, specialists have known about him for a long time. His code name, Mansour, that Arab terrorist who Italian police think planted the bomb on TWA Flight 840. Now, a great deal has happened in the investigation overnight. We're going to bring you the latest this half hour.
Also ahead in our final half hour, consumer reporter Erin Moriarty with Polaroid's newest Wonder camera. And we'll meet the newest stars in the world of ice skating, or I should say ice dancing, Jayne, Torvill, and Christopher Dean. They won a gold medal, and everybody that saw them dance said it is a sight to behold, and we'll get a chance to see some of that dancing, too. But if we want to get the latest news, we go to Faith Daniels. Faith?
Maria, a development from Rome on Flight 840. Italian police say they know who left the bomb on the TWA jet. They say a known Arab terrorist, codenamed Mansour, flew on the same jet a day earlier. And Italian police believe he left a bomb on board before he disembarked. In Athens, the remaining baggage was carefully removed from the TWA jet today, amid fear that another bomb may have been on board. Vice President Bush is going ahead with a planned trip to the Persian Gulf despite the bombing, but security will of course be very tight. Bush leaves Washington this evening. To the world, it's an act of terrorism, but to the families of the 4 Americans killed yesterday on Flight 840, it's a very personal loss. Sam Ford reports on the private grief behind the public tragedy.
Another act of terrorism over there and more grieving families over here. In Stratford, Connecticut last night, family members waved off reporters as they waited for confirmation. Later, it was confirmed that 37-year-old Alberto Espino was one of the 4 victims. The other 3 came from Maryland. Mother, Dimitra Stillian, 52, daughter, Maria Klug, 23, and granddaughter, 8-month-old Dimitra Klug. It all happened so fast.
There is sudden shock here. They can't believe it. They said, these people were on the plane. We didn't know they had gone to Greece. And all members of one family, is disbelief and shock.
Warren Klug Jr., a student at the University of Maryland, immediately left for Greece to handle the arrangements for wife, daughter, and mother-in-law. His parents in suburban Baltimore were filled with grief and rage.
I just can't believe it's happened. And I loved them, and we're going to miss them so much. And just to see lives, innocent people who wouldn't hurt anybody, just snuffed out. For what?
I just wish that Reagan would stop antagonizing the terrorists and stop them. That's what we need. We need the terrorists stopped, because we'd like to go to the Holy Land. We'd like to see the place where our Lord walked and talked, and we wouldn't go over there now.
The 3 Maryland victims were Greek Americans headed to Greece on family business. Unfortunately, theirs were the seats with the bomb under them. Sam Ford, CBS News, Washington.
In other news, the Air Force today is investigating the crashes of 2 planes on separate training missions. In New Mexico, an HC-130 search and rescue plane crashed, killing all 11 crew members. They were assigned to Kirtland Air Base. And in Arizona, a T-38 jet crashed, killing both crew members from Williams Air Force Base. Firefighters battling brush fires in the south hope the weekend will bring help in the form of rain. Virginia, which had lost more than 7,000 acres, did get some rain yesterday, but not nearly enough. Helicopters were called in to help fight stubborn fires in the southeastern part of the state. That's the latest from the news desk. Now for the latest on the weather, here's Maria.
Thank you very much, Faith. And the question's got to be, Kevin, I should introduce Kevin O'Connell substituting for Steve Baskerville on vacation. Are they going to get the rain that they need to put out those forest fires?
I doubt it seriously, Maria, at least not for the foreseeable 24 to 48-hour span, and I guess that's just something that they would like to have. We have a big storm brewing out west, but there's still enough of a curtain and protection here in the east, not allowing a lot of that to move through here very quickly. So as we get to the forecast map for later on this afternoon, this will give you an idea of what exactly we're talking about. Now, obviously, the areas Faith has just brought up deals mostly with the East Kentucky. We're talking about Virginia, parts of Tennessee, and West Virginia, parts even up into Ohio. These are the areas that obviously could use a lot of this storm activity in terms of rain to help the firefighters. It's going to stay for the most part in the plains today. This low pressure system, which consolidated with the other low yesterday, is very sluggishly moving to the east, so it's going to be another very sunny, mild day in the east, very stormy in the nation's interior, lots of snow in the hills of the Colorado Rockies, and as we take a look out to the west, we're also going to be having a real nice day as far as the west is concerned. Real quick, I want to tell you about the Halley's Watch. Next couple of weeks going to be very good viewing. Anything north of our broken line, forget. You will not see the comet anymore. You'll need another 76 years, but as you drop down, it looks like there's a lot of clouds in the nation's interior, and it looks like that'll be the place that you don't want to see it for the upcoming weekend. Very cool temperatures in the Rockies. We'll start to move to the east by tomorrow. We'll have the storm in the nation's interior. Rain is far to the east of the upper parts of the Great Lakes, but the southeast still will remain mainly dry. That's what we have for a national picture up to the moment. Here's some forecasts for some selected cities around the country today.
Good morning, Pittsburgh. This is Brian Hill in the KDKA Weather Center. We have 46 degrees in the city, 43 out in the suburbs, and it's going to be another great day. Here's the forecast. Mainly sunny and mild, high 65 to 70 degrees, depending on where you are in town.
Please have yourself a very safe and a very happy Thursday. We will see you on Getaway Friday. Forrest.
Thanks very much, Kevin. It is 24 minutes before the hour. You know that immediately when we hear about a disaster like the bombing of TWA Flight 840, our thoughts first go to the people involved, to the families, and then later we begin to think of other things. It raises once again the vital question of how we can make air travel safer. I talked about that this morning with a man named Fred Dorey. He is an airline security consultant who spoke to us from London. I asked him how well airports are equipped to deal with this terrorist threat.
Security staff have got to be professional. The day for amateurs has long since passed. This is no longer a task for retired gentlefolk, male or female. It is now a profession. And the sooner that people have some sort of professional qualifications for it, the safer we shall all be.
I am hearing some experts' comments this morning that whether it be a people problem or a technology problem, airport security remains unsafe as we speak. Is that fair?
Sir, with the greatest possible respect, it's rubbish. There's too many people saying that we cannot make a civil airport 100% secure. We can go very much further along the road to making it 100% secure than we've gone at present. And that's the sort of task that I'm working on at the moment.
Now, you have pointed, I believe, in the past to Israeli security as an example of how it can be done.
Yes, indeed. El Al doesn't have any trouble. And why don't they have any trouble? Because 2 weeks after an incident, they haven't gone back to sleep or relaxed. They're standing to attention the whole time, and quite rightly too.
Now, one person from the FAA is quoted this morning as saying, look, you have an enormous volume of passengers, an enormous volume of baggage, and you have a number of airports through which all of this must pass at several different locations. You are talking about a problem of huge magnitude, and on occasion, one device can slip through.
Yes, occasionally trains meet on a single track. People get killed on the roads. Ships disappear at sea. So nothing where human beings are involved can ever be 100% infallible. So we're going to lose some, but we're losing far too many at the moment.
Mr. Dorey, we sit here in the United States. We have seen this incident, and there will be people who will pass through the Rome airport, through Athens, through Cairo. Are they secure?
Well, evidently not. I'd like to say yes, they would be. Honestly, I don't know. It depends. I think the Rome authorities, and for that matter Athens, are doing their very best to make it secure. But we're dealing with people, guards and so on, who, if they do not pay attention, if they're thinking about what's on television tonight, or talking around talking to their colleague, or watching a hostess tripping down the concourse, then of course we're going to have failures.
Mr. Doré, thank you very much for talking with us this morning. We'll be back in just a moment.
Coming up next, Olympic ice dancing champions Torvill and Dean.
Big story, Herb.
But they finally found a substitute for the sweet roll. Hey.
Nutrigrain's new almond raisin.
What is this, nuts and twigs?
Try almonds, raisins, and these great new flakes made with brown rice.
But there's no sugar added. Herb, you're gonna love the taste, even though it's healthy. Hey, don't you have a story to write? How's this? Man eats healthy food and lives.
The amazing taste of Nutrigrain's new almond raisin.
It's news.
Get real fruit energy. Concentrated in Del Monte fruit snacks like yogurt raisins or tropical fruit mix. Tasty, chewy snacks packed with concentrated fruit energy. They're a powerful good snack.
If you want to know which plant food America's best gardeners use, ask the champions in the Guinness Book of World Records.
I swear by Miracle Grow. It's the best.
I know Miracle Grow gives me more vegetables than other types of plant food.
I grew my world record cucumber with Miracle Grow plant food.
Nothing beats Miracle Grow. Not in my book.
These champions know Miracle Grow gives you more flowers, more vegetables than other types of plant food. Hey, if world champion gardeners depend on Miracle Grow, shouldn't you?
Why is my antacid Tums? Tums is effective. It neutralizes 1/3 more stomach acid than the other leading brand. And Tums is rich in calcium. To me, that's extra good news.
I'm shocked and embarrassed. Soap made my skin dry. But with Dove, my face feels soft and smooth. I should have tried it long ago.
We asked women across America to give up their ordinary soap and take the Dove 7-day test.
Dove really improved the condition of my skin. It made my skin feel softer and smoother.
Dove is 1/4 moisturizing cream. It doesn't dry your face like soap.
I told everybody. I said, I'm trying Dove, and you know, it really does work. My skin feels softer.
Dove is better than soap. You can feel it in your skin.
Our next guests are the British duo who skated away with the Olympic gold in 1984 ice dancing competition. Their names are Jayne Torvill and Christopher Dean, but their loving fans just call them T&D. What they do on ice is not so much athletics as just gracefully gliding ballet, and there you see it, and it defies description almost. Well, after winning contest after contest with perfect scores of 6-0, they've ended their amateur standing and launched their own professional world tour. And last Friday, they began their American performances, and we are happy to have them joining us this morning. Welcome Jayne Torvill, who is right here, and Christopher Dean, who is right there. Good morning to both of you. I asked you earlier, how have American audiences treated you? Are they as great as the fans back home?
Well, they've been very vocal, and we've had great reception in the places we've played so far.
Different reception than you get at home? Have you noticed that this is, after all, America, and these people are different?
Yes, it is different, and they're very warm and appreciative. You know, they clap at all the little points, and they laugh in the right places, and at the end they're terrific. They're really warm at the end and vocal.
Now, we're used to having Olympic champions that are in ice skating competitions. They somehow always seem to go to the ice-capades or different ice shows and become a part of that and travel around the country. You decided not to do that and start your own thing. Why?
Well, we wanted to be a part of a show that that was the type of skating that we're used to, that we'd been doing as amateurs, and we wanted to continue that and, in fact, continue progressing, not to sort of reach a plateau and stop at that. And so we felt that the only way that we could do that was to form our own company and be in charge of it artistically, and to do our own choreography or to work with other choreographers, whoever we wanted to work with.
When Christopher says that you didn't want to reach a plateau, you want to keep progressing, everybody says you're perfect already. Where do you go from here?
Well, we still feel there's a lot of things we can do, and indeed we feel we've progressed already since turning professional. We've expanded, and we have no restrictions or rules that we have to adhere to anymore.
Now we're looking at some of your, now we should not call this ice skating, right? We should call it ice dancing.
Yes. That's what we do, ice dancing, yes.
How is that different? Why is this not ice skating? Forgive me.
Well, it is ice skating, but that's the general term. What we do within the competition is termed ice dancing, but all of it can also be termed ice dancing because that's what it should be, really. I mean, it's dance on ice.
But how do you think you've progressed from what we just saw?
From our sort of attitude now in actually putting on a show constantly each night, that responsibility to start with, but also with working with other choreographers that we've been working with, it's sort of broadened our outlook in what we can do, and the theatrics of actually putting on a show now, it's not just a sportive event under white light, it's the whole mood and intimate feeling of putting on a show.
Is it difficult, though? You've spent your whole lives gearing up for specific events where you get graded by judges. Now you have to go out and you work for the applause, and you have to do it really every night as opposed to once every several months. Does that make it more difficult, easier, better?
It's more of a responsibility to go out and because the people that are coming to see you are coming to see that performance that they saw on TV. So our responsibility is to try and reproduce that performance every night. And every night before you go out, you still get that nervous tension before you do when you went out in competition. Just that you can sort of sit back and relax a little bit more now, knowing that the whole year's work isn't going to be thrown away in 4 minutes.
Something I've always wondered when I see people like yourself skate, are you as good, as comfortable alone?
We fall down a lot.
Yeah. You fall down alone.
You get used to being with a partner all the time, but that's something else that we've been able to do within the show, is work a little with other skaters and separate too.
So you do actually dance or skate with other men?
Well, only for a short time. Most of it is together.
Oh, what was that? But it's not as much fun, right?
No.
She knows the right answers, doesn't she?
She knows. How about you? Do you know the right answers?
Yes, the same.
The same. Well, we thank you both for joining us this morning. I must say, it is a sight to behold. It always makes me want to be an ice skater, but only in my dreams.
Thank you.
We're going to leave you guys right here and take another look at some of your work. Thanks a lot.
Introducing new Tyson entrees, your passport to a world of great tastes. International classics like exotic chicken oriental with crisp snow peas. Romantic chicken francais with green beans amandine. And zesty chicken fiesta with Spanish rice. Treat yourself to delicious Tyson entrees.
Sensational!
Tyson entrees, your passport to a world of great tastes.
No matter what you do in life, Dean Witter will help you plan your investments based on your individual needs.
Everybody is somebody at Dean Witter.
A member of the Sears Financial Network.
As your life changes, your needs change. That's why you'll find experts in investments and real estate and insurance together at the Sears Financial Network. Come to a center at Sears or a member office for advice you can trust.
I read about it and I saw it on TV. Finally, it sunk in this thick skull. There are things I can do that may help prevent cancer. That's what the National Cancer Institute believes. They say a high-fiber, low-fat diet may reduce the risk of some kinds of cancer. So I made some changes. Like eating All Bran, the natural high-fiber cereal from Kellogg's. It's nice to know there are things I can do.
Kellogg's All Bran. For more facts, call the National Cancer Institute, toll-free.
Can't get to sleep, honey? You start your new job tomorrow.
I know. I gotta get some Z's.
Nitol will help you get your Z's.
Come on, Nitol. Give me some Z's.
Nitol will help you get your Z's.
Nitol helps you feel drowsy, so you can fall asleep fast.
Nitol will help you get your Z's.
It is now 12 minutes before the hour. Photographers around the country are getting the word about a brand new development. It's a new line of instant cameras and film from Polaroid. The company has spent $1 million just to introduce the line. They did that yesterday. They're hoping to steal the thunder from those new automatic 35mm cameras that you've been seeing a lot of. The question this morning, are the new Polaroids all they're cracked up to be, or could they just be a flash in the pan? Say it isn't so. We welcome our consumer reporter, Erin Moriarty, who has the answer.
Hi, Maria. It's always exciting to look at new products. Now, the name Spectra is probably not new to you now, but it won't be much longer. Polaroid plans to spend so much money promoting its latest instant camera that within months, you and every other person won't go a week without hearing the name Spectra at least once. Now, is this really the revolutionary system that Polaroid claims? That's what we tried to find out.
These aren't exactly the kind of pictures you'd expect from an instant camera, but then Polaroid is trying hard to change our expectations with its new camera, the Spectra.
It's not just a snapshot camera anymore.
Judy Largess, who helped design the Spectra, says it's smaller, sleeker, and for the first time, it gives the picture taker more control over the final shot.
Polaroid's new Sun camera.
But it's not just the camera that's changed. The casual and cool spokesman, James Garner, is out.
I'd like you to join me on a journey through the most unique total photographic system ever made.
Replaced by the stylish suits and accents of British actor Ben Cross, the spokesperson chosen to appeal to a more affluent customer, likely to pay the $200 plus price tag of the new Spectra. And the message is not just that the new model is better than past instants. Polaroid claims that this is as good as any automatic 35mm camera.
It will give exceptional color images that will rival the 35mm quality, yet it will deliver them instantly.
As good as a 35mm? Better than other instants? We wanted to see for ourselves. We went out with a brand new compact 35mm camera and one of Polaroid's own instant models for comparison. But then, since we're just amateur shutterbugs, we also invited the associate editor of American Photographer magazine, Ann Russell. Here's what we found. Most people like the Spectra pictures.
I use a 35mm, so instant, I don't know much about, but they seem colorful and focused.
I think I look terrific. It's great.
In nearly every case, the Spectra photo shows a definite improvement in instant film quality. Side by side another instant photo, the Spectra picture is bigger, the details are clearer, and in this case, the yellow flowers in the Spectra photo are much truer to life. But what happens when you put the Spectra up against the 35mm? It's not quite as good.
Well, I think my 35mm is a better photo.
The color composition is good, but it's not as well balanced as you would with a 35mm camera.
Nearly everyone we talked to agreed. The Spectra photo does not have the same quality of a 35mm. Take this picture. The t-shirts are much more white in the 35mm photo. The background is far more detailed. And in some cases, the blues are more blue, the skin tones more true.
We were told that this was going to be something like we'd never seen before. And I have seen this before. I mean, there are some really nice features about the camera, but all in all, it's still an instant camera.
Our professional doubts that many people will abandon 35mm cameras in favor of the new Instant. It's just too easy these days to get negatives printed immediately. While 35mm negatives cost about 40 cents to print, each instant picture costs more than $1.
If the decision is to buy a 35mm and a Polaroid camera, absolutely. Yeah, this is clearly superior.
But this instead of a 35mm?
Instead of a 35mm, I'm not so sure.
Now, the big question is what Maria thinks, and I happened to take a picture of Maria right before this. Yeah. It is here so that you can tell for yourself what you think. I don't know what you think, Maria. Well, it's not gross.
Yeah, my face is very light.
Yes, it is. That was the problem. The flash went off even though it's supposed to be a automatic camera.
Maybe we didn't take it right.
No, I followed the directions, exactly.
Really? The Polaroids are kind of great, though, if you're at a party and you want to watch the pictures come out right away.
Exactly, but they're trying to get a new kind of customer to go with the 35mm.
It's expensive, $200?
That's more than most Polaroids, but I had to bring something just to kind of show you. Now, this is The original Polaroid, 1948, and at that time, this sold for $90. That's $360 in today's money. So actually, a $200, $225 camera is not really that expensive when you look at it in perspective.
Okay.
Isn't this wonderful?
That's great. Collector's item. Thank you very much, Erin Moriarty. It is now 7 minutes before the hour.
And tomorrow, a very versatile young performer, Brooke Shields, will be with us.
We're going your way, saving with style. We're going your way, mile after mile. We're going your way, we're Budget.
At Budget, you get stylish cars without the stylish prices. Just $39.95 for a luxurious Lincoln. There's no better way to go.
We're going your way, we're Budget, and we're going your way.
When you buy a pair of Corning prescription lenses that change, it's like getting free light tints, free medium tints, dark tints, and a whole range of free sunglasses. Corning lenses. When you're buying eyeglasses, these are the ones to buy.
Does uric acid last long enough?
No, I've got to take it again.
Try double strength Mylanta 2 with nearly double the acid neutralizing power of any leading brand.
Double strength, that's my kind of difference.
Mylanta 2.
Mom's got an inch on me.
And I intend to keep it. So to supplement my diet, I take Avail.
Avail is the calcium-intensive multivitamin.
None of the leading multivitamins has the full calcium supplement I need.
Avail does.
In fact, all these vitamins put together don't contain as much calcium as Avail. To get your vitamins and all the extra calcium you need in one tablet, your multivitamin will be Avail. Avail, the calcium-intensive multivitamin.
I'm Kitty Banana, and I'm here to say a banana is something you can eat every day.
Jamie, what are you doing?
Eating a Chiquita.
Okay.
Chiquita, the world's most famous banana.
Time now, 4 minutes before the hour. And here's the weather forecast. A nasty day is on tap for the nation's midsection as heavy windswept rain pelts the northern plains and some potentially dangerous thunderstorms erupt across the southern plains. At the same time, parts of the eastern Rockies could receive a foot of snow.
If you've just joined us at the tail end of our program, let's give you an update on the latest developments in the bombing of TWA Flight 840. Italian police now believe that they know who was responsible. He's a known Arab terrorist, a man who is codenamed Mansour. Now, they believe that he boarded the plane a day earlier in Cairo, left the plane in Athens, and they think that he may have left behind the bomb. Well, the investigation, of course, is going on where the crippled plane landed. The FAA from the United States and FBI agents are there to help on orders of President Reagan. And the jet's flight recorders are being flown to the United States, and they will be analyzed here.
And as more information becomes available on that, people can see and learn more about it on the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather this evening. And we're going to tell you what's coming up on this broadcast tomorrow. We'll wrap up the week with Brooke Shields. She is about to make her debut in an off-Broadway play, and she'll tell us about that. Also, actor Richard Crenna will be here to talk about a new upcoming television movie called A Case of Deadly Force. And Dr. Bob Arnott has some good news about curing the upset stomach, so you will never, ever be sick again.
Well.
And, of course, Friday means time for Warner Wolf, and he may have plays of the week. It's not, I know, it's, what is this, new month, no plays of the month, plays of the week.
Plays of the week, I think.
Plays of the week.
Well, the occasional surprise for you, of course.
That's right. Maybe he'll kind of take it out on you one of these days.
Well, that wraps it up for this morning. We will be seeing you again tomorrow, and we leave you with some more of the lovely ice dancing of Jayne, Torvill, and Christopher Dean. Enjoy.
Bye-bye.